Good morning. It's good morning Vietnam, isn't it? Yeah. So welcome to another Sunday morning rant. It is Sunday morning. It is glorious here. It is 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm probably about 7:15 now. It is, well, in the mid-20s already. The sun is beating down overhead. I'm just sort of doing this from here, so you can see how glorious this place is. So where am I? Well, I'll do that there. That might give you a clue. Where am I? I am actually in the Caribbean, and to be more precisely, I'm in an ex-colonial country that is Jamaica, and I am very much on now Jamaican time. No problem. Yeah, man, as they say here. This is not going to be a rant about musical instruments, okay? So, you know, if you want to switch off now, please feel free. This is actually going to be a rant about why there's no rants and no technical documentation or technical videos have been going up on the channel recently. And I think, you know, those of you who have subscribed to my channel probably deserve to know what's going on. And I said I'll allude to it a couple of times, that I would say what's going on, but I haven't got round to it, and I think probably now's about the right time to have that face-to-face, if you like, video conversation. So, the reason why I'm in Jamaica is because I was pretty much told by my doctor to go and de-stress, because I have been carrying a lot of stress for a good few months now, probably since way before Christmas. And despite having a holiday in Zermatt earlier in the year, excuse me, I've got something in my eye. I was sort of generally struggling with everything that was going on. So the doctor said, if you don't go away, he said, your heart problems, and I'll come on to that in a minute, may get worse. So at the beginning of the year, I was in hospital. I had a heart issue. In fact, they actually thought I'd had a heart attack. That was pretty much the bottom line. They thought I'd had a heart attack. They pulled me into the hospital. They did a whole raft of tests on me, determined I didn't actually have a heart attack, but I did have, my heart has been under strain. I have a irregular heartbeat, and what the doctors pretty much said, you need to keep the stress levels underneath or in control. And they were getting out of hand, so he said, just go away, find somewhere, go away, de-stress. I've been here for over 2 weeks. I'm thoroughly de-stressed, I can tell you now. I am laid back, and I am thoroughly enjoying being here and not having to deal with very much that's going on at home. I will have to go home shortly, but at the moment I'm still here, and it's gorgeous. It really is gorgeous. Just taking it easy on the suntan though, because every time I go out there I go red. I don't go golden brown, I just go bright red and look like some sort of traffic light. So I'm slowly going brown. I have brownness in me and redness in me. You can see redness there. But I'm de-stressing. So the reason why the videos and the technical videos and the rants haven't been flowing, a couple of reasons. Number one, I've been so stressed that I could actually have struggled to think coherently to actually construct a decent rant. So what I tend to do with the rants is I tend to sit down during the week. Well, I say sit down during the week. What I tend to do is jot notes down when I'm travelling to and from work on the train, and then they slowly sort of form themselves up into a rant or into something, and then that normally gets put to camera on Sunday. So having that thought process, that creative process, I've been struggling with that because I've been so stressed. So that's one of the reasons why they haven't been coming forward, because I haven't been able to think of good subjects to actually rant about. There's loads of things to rant about. I mean, I'm ranting all the time, but good subjects to actually rant about to camera that I think you guys that watch this channel might actually enjoy listening about, interacting about, commenting about, etc., etc. So that's one of the reasons. The other thing is that because we are now moving into what I call the end game, and we were meant to be in court before I came away on holiday, actually, with my divorce, were producing documentation for the solicitor and the barrister. And in the UK we have, say for example in the US you have an attorney goes into court with you. In the UK you tend to have a solicitor and a barrister. The barrister represents you in court. The solicitor does all the day-to-day case administration. Okay, so producing information for the barrister and the solicitor is very time-consuming, extremely time-consuming, and I've got 17 years of history that I have to keep trawling through to answer specific questions. So, as I say, extremely time-consuming. I'm quite lucky because I have actually kept a lot of records relating to financial aspects of my relationship with my ex-partner. So it's not as bad as it could have been, where you have nothing and then you're fighting with an open canvas. Well, I actually have quite a lot of the information relating to why things were done a certain way, which has helped immensely construct my case against her. So, moving on to what do I mean by construct my case against her? Well, in the early 2000s, I mean, I've known my ex-partner for many, many years, okay, so probably since I was 18. But in the early 2000s, we got together. I moved into her house, which became the family home. And when I moved in, I obviously had my own property, which was then rented out to provide me with income, although it didn't actually provide me with any income for the first few years, because the rental pretty much covered the mortgage payments. So, it's a bit of an oxymoron to say it provided me with income, because it didn't at the time. So that's what we did. And I then brought up her 2 children by her existing husband as my children. And I often refer to them as my son and my daughter, because that's how I look at them. They are my son and my daughter, because I brought them up, I cared for them, and did all the other stuff that you do as a parent. So we split up in 2013, which was probably the right thing to do, I think, because believe between you and the gatepost, living with her was a very difficult thing, because she kept wanting to, what's the right word? She was very difficult to live with. Let's leave it at that. It's the easiest way. So we split up. Now, I keep referring to this as my divorce. Fair enough, because it's the easiest thing for people to understand. We were never married, okay? When I got together with her, she had just come through a very, very trawling divorce from her ex. She didn't want to get married, and at that point in time, it suited me down to the ground. So we didn't get married, and we just never got round to it, okay? However, during the relationship, we lived in the family home. I paid all the food bills. I paid the mortgage. I paid pretty much the utility bills. I paid all the insurances. I ran her car and my car, which weren't cheap, nice cars. I ran the children's cars when they got old enough. I didn't pay their tax and insurance. In the UK, it's very expensive for a teenager to have a car, so I paid all that. I even helped my son through his apprenticeship by giving him an allowance, so that he actually had a decent wage every week that he could then go out with his mates, etc. So that's what you do as a parent and as a couple. The problem is, well, no, let's just give you the other side of it. And during that period of time, we went and bought together a number of investments, okay, which are owned 50-50, and I don't dispute that. However, when we came to separate, what I said to her was, you know what, I'll take my capital injections into the family home and we'll contra that off the 50% of the investments that you own, and there'll be a small balancing payment and we'll deal with it. Okay. Sorry, you might be able to hear ice rustling in the background. That's because the staff here put coolers on the beach, so that when you go and sit underneath the umbrellas, etc., there's coolers full of beer and ice and water and stuff. That may be what you can hear jangling in the background. Anyway, that was my proposal. Small balancing payment, job done. She's not having any of it. She refused to accept that I have any claim over the family home, despite putting, reducing her mortgage down to a pittance, and putting a new kitchen, assisting putting a new bathroom, doing numerous capital improvements to the house over the years. But I have no claim according to her, pretty much according to every other solicitor I do, hence the reason why we're going through this elongated process. And that's what's really causing me to be stressed out, is the amount of information that is being requested on a pretty much weekly basis from the solicitors to counter her side's arguments of why things are not as I say they are. And in pretty much every instance they have to back down, because I just produce bank statements and I produce invoices and I produce emails verifying what I've said. But it is literally on a line-by-line basis. I am having to prove every single thing I'm saying. And it's very, very time-consuming. So, there are a couple of really big lessons learned coming out of this. Number one, get married, don't get married, your choice. However, before you start a relationship, especially if you're slightly older, and you come into a relationship with assets that you've previously owned with a prior partner, or you've acquired living on your own, make sure you document how those assets are going to be, how you're going to deal with those assets on the other side when you get divorced or separate. Okay, in my instance, I had properties that I owned before I met her and moved in with her, and we've had to fight to exclude those because she wanted to bring them in and claim that she had what they call a beneficial interest in those properties. The answer is she doesn't. She never did have. She's never lived there. She's never put any capital into them. There's no interest. But it still took time to get those things pushed out. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you are going to live in the family home, I think, going into this, work out how you're going to deal with the mortgage payment, the bill payments, etc., etc. So our situation evolved. I started by giving her money towards towards the mortgage and the bills, and ended up within a few years pretty much paying the lot. Okay, so I was paying everything because of the amount of money I was having to inject into her bank account, because she wasn't earning enough money to pay those bills and the mortgage. So, and that creates beneficial interest in that property, which is what I've been saying. I was effectively, contributing to your capital. So now now my ex-partner is living in a house that's worth £500,000 UK pounds with pretty much no mortgage on it, because I paid the mortgage on the family home. I don't, so I should be entitled to at least to get credit for those payments into that property and the increase in value. Now that's pretty much the way all the lawyers see it, apart from her lawyers. And I have been and had my case independently reviewed to make sure that my guys are not just talking flannel, but they're not. They really are not talking flannel at all. The next thing is, if you have got financial records about the period, make sure they're on the table. Now, my financial records have been on the table since the beginning of this process. The other side refuse to engage the financial records because they know that those financial records actually disprove a lot of what my ex-partner has said in her statements. In fact, quite a lot of her statements are actually inaccurate. So, again, if you are going to move in together, keep financial records of what's going on, who's paying for what, because when you get to the other end, this stuff really becomes important. And this is probably the biggest piece, right? Engaging solicitors, attorneys, whatever you want to call them, is expensive. Right? I know how much I have spent, and it is not cheap. And before you engage a solicitor or an attorney, you should really understand how much it's going to cost you to go through this process. And I pretty much understood that, and it's I've now exceeded where I thought we were going to be because of the amount of toing and froing and arguing that's going on between her solicitors and my solicitors. Most of which I might point out are for actually no good reason. It must be costing her a fortune because I know how much I've spent, and believe me, she has spent way more than I have spent. So, but I struggled to understand how she was paying her solicitors, and now I find out that she is not paying her solicitors. She's actually put a charge over the family home to pay for her solicitors, barristers, and court fees. And I do not understand how that can be allowed to happen. Not only will she have to pay my costs and pay me out effectively the balancing charge, she's also now going to have to pay out her solicitors as well, and she'll end up losing her house. And I do not understand how that can be allowed to happen. If you're going to go through this exercise, make each party pay their solicitors' bills. Because believe me, if they're paying their solicitors' bills, they come and sit at a table and they sort this stuff out. Whereas what she's been allowed to do means it's now costing both of us a lot of money to get to the other side. We're going to have to pay court fees and all God knows what else going forward to argue this out. Whereas if she was paying her own solicitor's fees and realising how much it was actually costing, because at the moment I think this is monopoly money to her in terms of how much is this actually costing, she would actually realise that she shouldn't be arguing all this stuff out. She should be sitting around a table and talking to me to actually come up with a deal that allows her to walk away. But she's refused to do that. So that's the other thing, is get around a table and talk. Try and talk this out before you engage solicitors. So they're my lessons learned, and the reasons why the channel is not really seeing updates on a frequency that I'd like to have the frequency. When I get back to the UK, I will sit down and there's a whole raft of videos I've got listed that I really should do on various different subjects. I've got a whole raft of keyboards that I've either repaired and I've done the videos, I haven't edited the video down yet, or I want to repair. And again, I need to edit those videos, I need to film those videos as I'm doing the repair. So, we are where we are. Hopefully, we should be in a better place really soon. But until then, thanks for sticking with me, or don't stick with me of course, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.